If you love boxing, you're gonna love this.
Well, hello and welcome to the first ever BoxNation Podcast. I'm Dev Sahni and I'll be your host every week as we're going to be looking forward, we're going to be looking back, we're going to be going sideways, there's going to be interviews, there's going to be exclusives, and actually firstly I'm just going to apologise because we've been going for 6 years now with BoxNation, and that's 6 years that you guys have been waiting for a podcast. But I'll tell you what, it's been worth the wait, and I'll tell you why, because I'm joined every week by pundit, journalist, presenter, a man with endless strings to his bow, an all-round good egg. His name is Steve Lillis. Hi, Steve.
Dev Sahni, what do I say to that introduction? What I've got to do is talk boxing and give it to you now.
Well, Steve, I look forward to receiving it, I guess, and I'm sure the BoxNation listeners also look forward to receiving your comments every week. Let's talk about this week's show. We have got Frank Warren coming up. We've got a little bit of Josh Warrington on the phone, a little bit of Lee Selby, and we've talked to Bradley Skeete. He talks about the whole Jeff Horn situation and what he's got coming up. Well, Steve, after a successful, banging Belfast show, you caught up with Frank Warren and he was in good spirits.
Frank, you brought big time boxing back to Belfast on Saturday night. What was your take on the whole weekend over there and the build up?
I thought it was excellent. You know, it was a really good night's boxing in front of probably the most knowledgeable boxing fans in Britain, without a doubt, and they loved it and I loved it. The atmosphere was unbelievably it's just a light electric there. Good fights, upsets, records being broken. You know, Teti with that knockout. I mean, stunning knockout. You know, most places somebody get knocked out in one round, you'd be booing, saying it's a dodgy fight. But everyone would see the power of that and how he caught him so cold. It was brilliant, and obviously we took him there for a reason. That was to be in Ryan Burnett's backyard and challenge him for a proper unification fight. So we're working on that now, and hopefully we hope we can deliver that to the fans and obviously take it back to Belfast.
He was absolutely fantastic, but to the Belfast crowd, they were there for one man really, Carl Frampton and Jackie Conlon, but Carl Frampton over there for. What did you make of Carl's performance?
I thought Carl. Let's put it in perspective. First of all, he's been out of the ring for 10 months. He had a big problem in the fight that never happened and all the stuff that went on around that. He's obviously had a lot of mental anguish and problems regarding his previous promoter, and that's all ongoing. And he picked the opponent. I wouldn't have picked that guy for his first fight back, I'll tell you that straight. But he picked him. He said, I want tough fights. Well, he certainly got one. You know, Canelo don't come over and Canelo's manager, who looks after the guy. I mean, they're not involved with mugs. That guy was a quality operator, and he gave Carl a very tough fight. I thought Carl won it by 3 rounds. It's rounds in the bank. It's good for him. He's got it out the way. He's settled down, as we all know now, with a new trainer. Bearing in mind he went to a new trainer, so all those things were all happening. And I think he did what he had to do. He beat a tough guy. I mean, if we'd have made that guy, if that had been a world title fight, everybody would have been happy, wouldn't they? Mm. You know what I mean? That's you'd said as an opponent for a world title, you'd have been, wow, that's a great fight. So, you know, he did what he had to do, and I'll take my hat off for him for picking such a tough opponent. Now we move forward. As you know, we've got this situation going with the featherweights. We've got Josh Warrington on board. Lee Selby boxes on the 9th of December at the Copper Box in London. He comes through his fight. He's got his mandatory defence against Josh. That'll take place late April. So we've got to get Carl a fight in between, and hopefully he can fight the winner in the summer, or another or another challenge with one of the other world champions. So that's what we're working on.
Carl has said today that he's going to let his team pick the opponent for the next one.
I told him that. I said to him, you know, listen, I love you dearly, mate. You know, he's a fighting man. He comes to fight. He wants to fight. But the bottom line is, you know, he could have done with an easier job, to be quite honest. But that tells you the caliber of what he is. I mean, most fighters ask you, it's a totally opposite. I promise you.
Scott Quigg was ringside on Saturday night. Could he come into the equation?
Scott, if you've not got a promotional contract, come and join the party. Come over with us. It's where it's happening. You know, you'd be a great a great addition, a great asset to what we're doing. We'd love you to be involved. He's a lovely lad, and again, he can be part of that.
BT must have been pleased with Belfast and the way everything's going with you boxing over the last few months on their channel.
Well, we always said from the beginning, you know, we've been putting good shows on BoxNation for a long time, and you know, within our financial constraints, we've done well. Brought guys through, who've become world champions. But where we are now is we've levelled up the playing field. BT are committed broadcasters who work exclusively with us and us with them. And since April, and we've done the deal and as much as it took a long time to get the deal done, it's suddenly like, bang, it's done, bums rush, get moving for April. I think we've put good quality shows on. They've been, you know, the quality's been excellent. The undercards have been solid. We've had a good, real top quality fights on the undercards, and that's our formula, and that's the way forward for us. So that, you know, they must be pleased. I'm sure the punters are pleased, and hopefully we can continue doing what we're doing.
BoxNation's got a busy few weeks coming up. BT have still got more shows this year, the Copper Box and then Billy Joe Saunders fight. What does 2018 hold for what you'll deliver to both channels?
I think what will happen now is, you know, certainly come the end of their financial year, BT, which is March, April onwards, we'll be putting together some seriously good quality shows and improving on what we're doing. We've managed also, which I think slipped under the radar, we actually we did a show for Sky, which was available to Sky subscribers on the pay-per-view basis, the Canelo and Golovkin fight. So we've broken that, what I consider to be a stranglehold. That's been broken, and we're now enables us to deliver even bigger fights, because let's get it right, you know, big name fighters want to earn maximum money, and the only way they can do it is pay-per-view. I don't believe in the saturation of pay-per-view that's going on at the moment. I think it's just far too much of it. But we're going to have to be involved with that, and you know, obviously for years we've done the very first pay-per-view on Sky, Bruno and Tyson, Mike Tyson, many years ago. We're going to have to do a few shows, so we'll do probably 2 or 3 next year. Next financial year we'll be doing that.
It would have to be proper events, say like
course,
a Canelo rematch with Golovkin, that sort of stuff.
But I'm talking about for Brits. I mean, some of our guys. I mean, for example, if Billy Joe Saunders beats Lemieux and he winds up fighting the winner of Canelo and Golovkin, that's a pay-per-view fight, whatever way you want to look at it. So there are events there that can happen. You know, if we, you know, I'm using a hypothetical fight. Say, for example, Tyson Fury fought against Joshua. That would have to be a pay-per-view fight.
What's happening with Tyson Fury? Do you know anything?
His case, they got a hearing, I think, in December.
When it's all over and if presumably he's allowed back, who do you think he'll fight for? Will he?
Well, you know, as far as I'm concerned, we're looking to promote him. That's where we are. We pulled out of 2 fights through his problems, and that's where we are. But you know, we just want to deliver it. I like Tyson. I think Tyson. I really want to see Tyson back in the mix. For me, he's the best one out there.
And how do you think Sky are responding to all the boxing on other channels at the moment? BT, BoxNation, ITV, 5?
I've got no idea. I don't care what they're thinking or what anyone else thinks. I think all I think about is what we're doing. You know, boxing's in a good place at the moment. For all these TV channels to be showing it, tell you it's in a good place, and I think that's great for the game. I can remember people saying boxing is dead, it's a finished sport a couple of years ago. People like old Patrick Collins, who used to write with the Maoris, like, this sport is finished. Far from being finished, it's blossoming and blooming, and I think that we're going from strength to strength. And bearing in mind all these youngsters coming through, I think some of these youngsters are going to be much bigger names than some of the champions who are around now. There's some good quality guys there, and if they fulfil their promise, then I think the fans are going to be in for a treat.
But can too much boxing on TV ever dilute the sport? I mean,
well,
for example,
it hasn't diluted Premiership football, has it?
No, okay, in the sense that you could have 3 channels both showing boxing the same night, same time.
But
that sort of
right,
thing.
But the other side, you don't get that happening with football, and that's where boxing gets whored. You know, they don't give a shit about the fans, and that's where the TV companies should work together on that. You know, what is the point of putting head boxing on? It's ridiculous. So they record one and watch the other, and all you're going to do, no one's going to achieve the maximum audience for their event. Because there are some are going to want, they're going to make a choice. They've got a choice rather than, right, this is the boxing event that night, let's watch it. So I would hope that common sense would prevail there, and that they think about the fans. It's all about the fans, and sometimes they get overlooked. We try to do our best for our fans. We try to maintain our ticket prices at reasonable levels. We very much discourage them buying tickets from the secondary market. For example, like companies like StubHub who sponsor Matchroom. We're anti all that. We're anti it. We by the way, their offices got raided last week. Be interested to see what comes out of that. But we're really committed to delivering what we can do for the fans. Always has been.
So would you like to see the broadcasters or yourself sit down with rival promoters and broadcasters to thrash out these dates?
Yeah, I think it's common sense, isn't it? Why would you want to start program? For example, say you got a pay-per-view on Sky, and somebody like me, for example, put on a real good top quality fight on the same night. All you're going to do is kill their pay-per-view. Whatever way you look at it, that's what will happen. It's ridiculous.
You went to the USA to promote in the 90s with Showbox. Matchroom are over there now. Will they be able to succeed in America?
We've been there and done that. American promoters are. You've got great American promoters who've been doing it. Bob Arum's been doing it before Herm was born. He's a fantastic promoter, and what he's doing now on ESPN, he's getting fantastic audiences, big audiences on there. He went out and done his show, didn't he, with
Danny Jacobs.
Danny Jacobs in New York. I think they generally sold about 2,000 tickets. Not knocking the door down. I remember the first show I promoted in New York. I took Naz out there. He fought Kevin Kelly, and I think it was about 8 days before Christmas, or 9 days before Christmas, when everyone was saying we were crazy, and we broke their box office records for a featherweight contest, and it was mobbed out. I think we sold about 15,000 tickets. We broke the box office records when we went down to Albuquerque with Johnny Tapia. It was huge down there. I went out there, was very instrumental with Jay Larkin launching Showbox. We've done loads of dates, over 100 dates with them out, between here and the States, and various other shows out there. We promoted at Trump's building in Atlantic City, and I took Barrera out there. He fought on the undercard. So there's loads of shows. We've done it. Mickey Duff promoted in the States, down in Florida. Ain't nothing new. It is what it is. But I think when we went out there, believe it or not, contrary to what history may say, when we went out there, we went out there and done it in style with a big fight to start with, which got bums on seats.
Do you ever look at social networking at all, Frank?
I'll be honest. Somebody will bring something to my attention, like they did with the Anthony Joshua thing, which I think needs everybody's attention. I don't really spend a lot of time on it because I haven't got the time. I don't want to be telling everybody, what I've had for dinner.
No, I was just asking. So I was asking what you make of people who use Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. When they have this, we're Team Eddie or Team Frank.
What I think of it?
Yeah, well, before boxing fans have their favourite. I'm on that side, almost if they're football fans.
I've got to be really honest about it. I love the Team Frank supporters. They're my men. I love them.
Before we let you go for this week, Frank, what was your highlight? Your one highlight from Belfast on Saturday?
Well, Carl being back. Do you know what my highlight was? The honest truth. I love the fights. That was the crowd. What a fantastic crowd. That was a highlight because it's an appreciative crowd. And the down thing, because you asked me what the up was, the down thing was Jamie Condon, which I thought was a great shame. But that was a tough fight. That was a very, very tough fight against a very good quality fighter. But Jamie, showed that he's got heart, but unfortunately it wasn't his night. And another highlight was lots of highlights here. Another one was Paddy Barnes. I thought he'd done well fifth fight. Bearing in mind he's probably been an amateur for 15 years to come out and so that's a bit of a transition he's got to make. But I thought he'd done well. But great show. My highlight was Belfast. Yeah, the whole of it.
Well, thanks a lot, Frank, for joining us this week. Next week you'll be back to talk about upcoming fights and some of your fighters.
I certainly will.
Well, Frank Warren in great form there. He says he loves the people that are on Team Frank. How was he, Steve? He seems quite well.
He was in good form. He's just had a very successful show in Belfast. Sold the place out, genuine sellout, fantastic atmosphere, some marvellous fights, marvellous performances on the night. He was in great form, and Arsenal beat Tottenham Saturday. So if you're going to go and see Frank for a pay rise, today was the day to do it.
Missed it. Oh, I missed it. Well, the crowd was incredible. One thing that I noticed, you talk about some people are Team Frank, Team Eddie, etc., etc. We played Sweet Caroline at the show. Sweet Caroline was played at the show. Everyone was loving it. But then there were some articles and some tweets that went up about Frank is copying Eddie. That's an Eddie Hearn song. Neil Diamond, I think he's the person who sings that song. So Neil Diamond, I guess, is signed with Eddie Hearn. Is that right, Steve? Have I missed something?
I'm pretty sure Frank was the first to play that song. I'm not saying, I don't know whose idea it was. It may well have been Mike Goodall, who does the rings for everybody in the country. I think it might be on his tape, and he played it first at the Frank Warren show years ago.
Well, what sort of boxing fan are you if you are hearing a song and you are annoyed because you heard it at another show? What is the world come to?
This Team Eddie, Team Frank thing, just enjoy the boxing. There's lots of great boxing to watch across the board. You know, to go and pick a team over who plays the warm-up music before the main event, just sit and enjoy the boxing, enjoy the coverage. Whether you're watching boxing on Sky, BT, BoxNation, ITV, just enjoy, because you know what? Boxing fans have never had it so good when it comes to TV.
And Sweet Caroline is a pretty good song.
No.
Well, Steve, let's look back on a tremendous weekend in Belfast. I went myself. The atmosphere was, second to none. It was out of this world. All singing along. I mean, my particular memory is the Jamie Conlan fight. I know he lost the fight and he got knocked down several times, but it was the crowd almost lifting him up to his feet. What a night! And what did you make of it all?
Belfast is a remarkable fight city. They get behind their boxers, they get behind their sporting heroes, and that section of that part of Ireland needed a lift after the exit of their football team from the World Cup, controversially against Switzerland. And boy, did they get it the other night. I'll take it they got the lift because you weren't singing to them, Dev, as well. And they only joined in with them. But it was a fantastic night. I was privileged to watch it on the TV. Jamie Conlan went where no man needs to go against Jerwin and Sages, who's an exceptional fighter. We saw his previous defence against Tiago Kinoshita on BoxNation. Incredible bravery. And these people who dig out boxers on social media at times need to look at what they're willing to go through. What Jamie Conlan left there the other night wasn't just everything. He went beyond the call of duty the other night, and no wonder his brother Michael, an exceptional talent, put out the text on Sunday morning saying that Jamie will always be his hero. Absolutely fantastic. We've seen before the sort of depths Jamie will go to win a fight. Even the other night, he would have carried on all night long, and I was relieved when the stoppage came. He came up against a very good champion, and he can be so proud of what he did the other night.
Well, I think the term "brave Brit" is always readily available to headline writers. It's used too often, I think, and sometimes they're not necessarily that brave. They just come second. But with Jamie Conlan, he was a brave Brit.
Too brave. As I say, he didn't need to go there the other night against an exceptional champion, and I hope that he comes back. You know, he gives it another go. Boxing, I haven't seen anything about what he's going to do or not going to do. I'd like to see him have another go and come back and see how he fares. Certainly start up at domestic level and see where it can take him again. You know, it's going to be very hard for him to win a world title. A lot of these little men are exceptional fighters, but I certainly think he shouldn't be discouraged from certainly having a good rest, enjoy a couple of his brother's Michael's fights, including the one that's at Madison Square Garden in a couple of weeks that we have on BoxNation, and just get back on the horse in a few months.
Carl Frampton, 10-round points win over Horacio Garcia. Garcia was no mug. He came over to win. What do you make of it?
Garcia was very good. I think Carl, he hasn't said it was a mistake, but Carl made the match. That was the opponent Carl picked. He's now said today that in future he'll leave it to his team. By that he means MTK, I dare say Frank Warren. He'll have a say as well for the next fight. Look, he'd been out of action for 10 months. He'd been through a lot in the last 10 months with the split from Cyclone Promotions that we know very little about actually what went on. And he was with a new trainer, Jamie Moore. And, there has been some criticism of it, but I think, he's got to be given a pass for this fight. I'd be a lot more worried if he'd had a fight a few months ago and come into this and underperformed. It wasn't his best. He knows that. He's an honest person. And there's still big fights on the horizon for him. Next year, I dare say all roads are leading to Lee Selby. And that's going to be a very, very hard fight for him. Winnable, but very, very hard.
Well, let's see what Carl himself had to say about his performance against Horacio Garcia.
Your thoughts on the fight and your performance in what was a thrilling contest.
On the fight, I think it was a good fight for the fans. I think everyone will probably have enjoyed that, more than me anyway. I got myself caught up in a fight. I was boxing lovely at the start. Middle rounds, I kind of started to try and fight him. I was doing good stuff in patches, and then I let him drag me into a fight. But a hard guy, I wanted a hard fight. I didn't want nothing to be too easy coming back. But that's got the rust off, and the cobwebs are gone, and now I want one of the big boys.
Now, it was ruled as a knockdown. You clearly weren't hurt, but you said your ring rust. There was no sign of ring rust from your timing early on. But why did you get drawn into a fight against such a rugged opponent?
I like to please the fans, don't I? And in fairness to Victor Loughlin, I slipped, but on the way down he landed a shot, so it was probably fair for him to call it a knockdown.
Well, listen, congratulations. Let's have a word with some of the other members of your team. Jamie, the first contest in this new partnership of trainer and boxer. How do you rate the performance that Carl has produced tonight?
It was okay. I think he can do much, much better. As he mentioned, he got dragged into a fight, which obviously is great for the fans. It's not great for me, it's not great for everyone else. And as Carl said, he had nearly all the input in that guy. And for the first fight back with a new team, a full new team around you, we'd have liked a little bit of an easier touch. But you know what? It was a great fight, and he'll do him no harm in the long run because he's got some good hard rounds in against a good opponent. And if he's going to go in with someone like your Santa Cruz Ramirez, then that's great preparation for it.
Well, good hard rounds against a good opponent. That was Jamie Moore's assessment. Carl, as you mentioned, Steve, Carl picked his own opponent here. I think Frank Warren's come out and said that he wouldn't have picked Horacio Garcia. They've gone for a bit of an easier touch. What does Carl do now?
I think he's got to take stock of his first camp under Jamie Moore. What maybe needs to be done a little bit more. I'm not sure. At times maybe his timing wasn't at best the other night. Maybe they could have sparred a little bit more, but you're just picking little holes. As I say, he's got to get a pass for that the other night after what he's been through. It wasn't just the change of trainer, promoter, broadcaster even. You've got to take into consideration he's just come off his first loss as a professional against a man he'd previously beaten. That would have hurt. That would have wounded him so much. That's why he can't get through an interview really without mentioning wanting Leo Santa Cruz for a rubber match. So that hurt him a lot. I think now he'll most probably go home, enjoy his Christmas with his family, start a camp in the new year, and I dare say Frank's plan will be to bring him out sometime in the spring, possibly, hopefully back in Belfast, and then after that it looks like Selby Warrington could be on late summer, go and face the winner of that, possibly at Windsor Park, August time. Another the open air fight that he craves for at the stadium he's always wanted to box at.
Well, Steve, there's also been a bit of chat about the idea of doing one of these super series in the featherweight division. There seems to be a wealth of talent in that division, and it kind of makes sense to whack them all in together. Isn't that what we want to do?
I would love that to happen. I mean, we saw how it had injuries in it, but the Super 6 Super Middleweight tournament was one of the most memorable things I can remember in boxing, and likewise the current the World Boxing Super Series that's going on. I'm really enjoying that. So these sort of things do work. Your problem with like how the Super 6 were injuries as that in that, but if you look at the featherweight division now, you can do a fantastic one between the world champions Lee Selby, Oscar Valdez, Gary Russell, Leo Santa Cruz. But look on our own doorstep what we could do here. You could have Lee Selby, who's the IBF champion, Josh Warrington, Scott Quigg, Carl Frampton, throw in Kid Galahad, who has plenty to say for himself. That's 5, and then maybe Gavin McDonnell might move up from super bantam now his brother's jumping to that rate. And there's even domestically, if you wanted to throw a domestic fighter in there to make it 6, if Gavin McDonnell weren't about, British champion Ryan Walsh or Commonwealth champion Reece Bellotti.
A lot of talent on these shores. It's a hell of a division, and Frank Warren has almost got a kind of monopoly on it with the best fighters in the UK in that division. He's got Frampton, he's got Selby fighting on his show coming up, he's got Josh Warrington. Where does Scott Quick fit into this?
Well, I don't know what where Scott lays contract wise with Matchroom. He's been boxing with Eddie Hearn, who's brought him back after he's lost to Carl Frampton, which although it wasn't controversial to me, Frampton was a clear winner. He did start very slow in that fight and virtually gave the fight away. And I'm sure if he was out of contract somewhere else, then Frank would be happy to speak to him. I mean, it certainly would make sense to be in the same stable as your biggest domestic rivals, wouldn't it?
It would make sense. Well, that question was actually put to Carl Frampton and Frank Warren at the post-fight press conference. They were asked, Carl, are you interested in doing a super series? Here's what they had to say.
I think there's been a lot of talk about it. It's something that I would be interested in.
But it's a series.
Yeah.
They have to come to us for it. They're all with us.
Yeah.
All of them. Somebody else, Yeah, just give us a phone. All a couple of guys who are not in it, and we're ready to roll. We don't need no one else here. It's a one-stop shop.
Well, Steve, we're staying with the featherweights. Lee Selby, the IBF featherweight champion of the world, has a defence on the 9th of December against Eduardo Ramirez. And then if he comes through that, which we're hoping he will, he'll be taking on Josh Warrington in 2018. The winner will probably fight Frampton in the summer. So, Steve, you caught up with Lee Selby earlier on in the week, and here's what he had to say.
Next up at the Copper Box on December 9, Eduardo Ramirez. What sort of test are you expecting from the Mexican rival?
First of all, he's a Mexican. They're renowned for their toughness. They turn pro early. They gain lots of experience in the professional ranks. He's trained by a former opponent of mine, Montiel's brother, Fernando Montiel's brother. So they know me inside out. They've been in the opposite corner before, so they know what to expect from the night. He's unbeaten, but I think this might be like my 5th unbeaten fighter. What else do you mean? A lot of pressure, a southpaw stance. I think I've only boxed maybe 1 or 2 southpaws as a professional. So he brings a lot of challenges, but I'm confident I can overcome it.
Is there a lot of pressure because 2018 should be the year you become a household name? Because if you're going to have to fight Josh Warrington, and then very possibly if you win that, Carl Frampton. They're the sort of fights, open air stadiums. You win them, you're a household name. So would that be on your mind when you get into the ring or during that week?
There is pressure there, but I try and stay professional. I just blank everything out. It's just another fight. Hopefully I come through that, and then I got a massive fight with Josh Warrington. He's built up a big rivalry between us, and like you said, an outdoor stadium fight. And I could have 2 back-to-back with Carl Frampton as well. So next year is going to be a massive year for me, hopefully.
What do you think of Josh Warrington?
When he first came on the scene, I thought he was alright. He seemed like a nice kid, nice and respectful. But I think all the Northerners like blowing smoke up his backside. He's starting to believe his own hype, and he seems to be getting a little bit ahead of himself, a little bit big-headed. But that could be expected if everyone's telling you you're great, you're this and that. But as a fighter, you can't say he's not good because of his achievements. He's won almost the similar titles as me. When I was vacating him, he was picking them up, except for like the English title. So he can't be a bad fighter, but I don't think he's a great fighter. He does everything reasonably well. He got a decent jab, decent work rate, decent defence, but he hasn't got like an outstanding jab or an outstanding work rate or an outstanding defence. So he's a decent fighter.
There's a real chance you could face Carl Frampton in another stadium fight next year. How much tougher would Frampton be than Josh?
A lot tougher. It's a different type of fighter. He's an elite fighter, Carl Frampton. Punches very hard, very skillful. Yeah, it'd be a different fight.
If you come through next year, do you want to go back to America in a sense? James DeGale, who's sharing the bill with top bill with you at the Copper Box, he's been to America and he's come back home. For you, you've had that Montel win, and you went to Las Vegas and the fight fell through the day before. Do you want to go back there?
For me, I haven't had much luck, not in boxing, in life, and everything. You look at the three fighters that signed with our Heyman, that's myself, Carl Frampton, and James DeGale. Them pair had the big fights, made millions of dollars, and you've seen the luck around with me, pull outs and all sorts. So I've just been a little bit unlucky. So hopefully next year can be a better year for me.
The other world champions, Leo Santa Cruz, Gary Russell, Oscar Valdez. Which one would give you the toughest fight?
I've sparred many rounds with Valdez. We've had very good spars, very competitive. Gary Russell Jr. He's a southpaw, very fast hands, punches hard, and Santa Cruz brings a lot of pressure. But I believe on my night I beat off with him. If I can box to the best of my ability, I believe I can beat off with him. The toughest test would probably be Gary Russell Jr. because of his hand speed. But then on a different night, it could be Santa Cruz with his work rate. You never know. They're all good in their own right, but I believe I can beat all three of them. Do
you still want to go back to America, or you're happy to be here now?
My ideal plan would be to get a win now December the 9th, beat Josh Warrington, beat Carl Frampton, and then have a unification fight with maybe Santa Cruz.
Because if you come through Warrington and Carl Frampton, your name's got to be made.
That's it. It's set a big fight for Santa Cruz if I could beat Carl Frampton.
And at the Copper Box, is it going to be a James DeGale and Lee Selby double win?
I hope so. I know James DeGale is going to win, but I'm hoping I can perform to the best of my ability, and I'll have no problem.
Well, we've heard that interview from Lee Selby. We've got Josh Warrington on the phone, who has also just heard that interview. Josh, what did you make of it? He said that you are getting ahead of yourself. He said some nice things, but he did say you're getting ahead of yourself. You're having smoke being blown up your backside. What do you make of Lee Selby's comments?
Well, to be honest with you, it's the first time I've been called big-headed. I tried to go about my business in a humble manner. I always show plenty of respect for my opponents, and I never get myself too. I never get myself. How do I put it? I never get too far ahead of myself. I've always just taken every fight as it comes, and I've never said that I'm going to do this, that, and another. I've always just looked confident and going into the fight what's always been in front of me. So I don't know where he gets the big headedness from. As regards to being a fighter, yeah, obviously I've picked up everything that he vacated and some more. Over the last few fights, I think I've been in better names than what he has. And the thing is, I've always given him credit as a fighter. I've always said it takes a good fighter to be a world champion, which he does. And I've always spoke high of his boxing ability. What I don't like is his attitude and the way he goes about things, and just there is just to back me up. He's another reason why he had fuel to the fire, because it sounded like he had to say that I was a decent fighter because he's probably going to be matched up that way, but I don't think he's got any respect for me.
Well, he said, Josh, that this rivalry seems to have been created by you, and he's kind of referred to that a couple of times in the press conference as well that we had for DeGale and Selby. He said that you are obsessed with him. What do you make of that?
I think it's a lot of bollocks, to be honest with you, really and truthfully, because over the last few years, rivalries naturally build up. Obviously, you want to be best in the division, and there couldn't be a fighter who might be just in front of you, so naturally, you want to try and beat that fighter in front of you. The media will build up a rivalry, the division will build up a rivalry, and the fans will build up a rivalry. That's, well and good. What we made was, with him winning his world title, he'd constantly say that he'd come to Leeds, he'd beat me up, I'd be easy work, I'm not in his league, all this stuff. And then he'd blow out on calls. He'd go from saying stuff like that and turn around and say, you know, I'm looking past Josh Warrington, I'm looking at bigger names. Then all of a sudden, they wanted to put an offer towards us. Then he said it and missed my opportunity. Really and truthfully, he's been on these terms, and yeah, he is a world champion, but he's not a massive draw, so he hasn't got as much power to dictate as what I have, because obviously I've got a fan base, and I think I've got the bigger name than he has. Yeah, he's on in the boxing world, but outside of that, like nationwide and whatever, you know, we've got a bigger pull than what he does. So, you know, I think we're quite kind of level in terms on pulls, but yeah, I think the rivalry's been built up from both sides, and I think it got a bit personal last year when, you know, I asked for a change date for the fight what got offered to us.
Well, do you want to set the record straight there at all, Josh? I mean, there's the kind of narrative that's out there in the public is that you were offered the fight with Lee Selby, and you said no because you're getting married, and then you fought anyway. So that's kind of the narrative that's been put out there. Do you want to set the record straight with what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it many occasions, and people can make their own opinion on this. But you know, and I've said it already before, but people still don't listen to what I'm saying. And here is the truth: we got offered the fight. You know, we sat down as a team. Everyone decided that it'd be better if I had the big world title fight after my wedding. And really and truthfully, that's what path we were going to be set on anyway. I thought after being Abagassed, then I'd have probably a bit of a tick over. I'd get married, and after that, then I'd either fight Lee or maybe in a final eliminator. That didn't happen. The offer came, you know, a little sooner than we expected. So we sat down as a team. The team said probably better if you fight after. And then, whilst waiting for an answer if we could change the date to later in the year, you know, their team came out with all the bollocks that I don't want the fight, and I'm avoiding him, I'm ducking him, and I'm calling him out, and I don't want it. You know, a lot of that calling him out got made up by media. So then now in terms of changing the wedding date, even though I put a lot of money down on deposits, I put like 15 grand down on a deposit. That didn't matter to me. But that was the case of let's make the fight now. But then his team came out and said no, you've missed your opportunity. So yeah, then what happened is the previous promoter turned around and said, you know, I've got all these other fighters and we need to put them out. Can you headline? Can you go to Leeds? And I turned around and said, listen, I'm going to look a bit of a twat if I do that, because, you know, I was supposed to just, you know, fight Liam, and obviously that's not happened. But I ended up going ahead and headlining the show in Leeds later that year. Obviously a few months later in July. So it wasn't a case of me not wanting to fight. All I asked for was a change of date, and that was that. And obviously his team came back in a very disrespectful manner and started taking it a bit personal.
Josh, do you think there's a bit of jealousy towards you from rivals like Lee, because they see, even when you're defending British title and international titles, you're cramming 10,000 people into that magnificent arena in Leeds?
Yeah, without a doubt, Steve, without a doubt. The thing is, you know, I'm pretty blessed to say that, you know, I've got a massive fan base behind me, and a very loyal one at that. And you know, there's some fighters who, let's not forget, I haven't even won a world title yet, and I've got a massive following. So what's it going to be like when I do win a world title? And for him, you know, he's got this false persona he puts on, that he acts like a bad man, and you know, he's not bothered, but really he's shy and he's not really that confident in interviews and stuff like that. Really, he's a quiet lad away from the boxing, so you know, he ain't got the following that he kind of expects to. Yeah, he's a good boxer, but he's not the most entertaining boxer, and he's not the most exciting boxer. And I think so. That's what it is. He's won a world title, and he's not getting the credit for that. So yeah, I think there is a bit of jealousy in there.
Okay, well, unless you've got anything else to ask Steve, or anything you want to add, Josh, I think we'll wrap it up there. And I'm sure Lee Selby's going to come back with his own comments based on this podcast.
I'm sure he will do, and I'm sure he will do. But yeah, you know, it's no good calling. You know, obviously records show and results show. So I reckon that when we fight, I'm hoping that he'll admit that I can be mixed amongst their names, because at the minute he's not giving me that credit. But I know deep down that I'll beat him, I'll win the title, and I'll be ranked alongside all them set names that you mentioned earlier.
Well, it sounds like sooner or later, Josh, you're going to have your opportunity to prove just that. If Lee Selby comes through his fight against Ramirez in December, it's all set for you and Lee to clash in the early part of next year, so we look forward to that. Well, every week on the BoxNation Podcast, we will give you the opportunity to have your say. So, yesterday we put out a tweet and we asked you, and this was a question that came from my esteemed colleague, Steve Lillis. He wants to know some featherweights who have never delivered to their full potential. That's because we're talking featherweights. So let's have a look at what some of you guys came up with. Steve, what came in?
You know what? We had a great response, and I was sitting at home reading my Twitter feed, and it was a lot better reading these answers to the question about featherweights who haven't fulfilled their potential for one reason or another than watching the Watford West Ham game yesterday, which stunk the place out, frankly.
No good.
4 or 5 names seem to pop up often. There was one beauty that come up, only one person mentioned it. Tamur Khan, 13. Yurikoris Gamboa would be a good example, but he wasn't the most dedicated boxer, hasn't been, and now I think he's fighting up at lightweight and he's about 5'2". 315 Stucky come up with a good one. Gary Russell Jr., who he said after getting a clinic by Vasyl Lomachenko, he has been very inactive, and although he has a belt, he has been totally out the picture. So if things continued, Russell could be one of those fighters who never fulfills the potential. Jambo Kennedy was one of a few who went for Scott Harrison, and they all come up with the same sort of line. Good world champion, could have been one of the Scottish legends. Problems with alcohol, drugs and relationships sent him off the rails. Tried to make a comeback to no avail. Another popular one was from Steve 4132. A lot of people went for Colin McMillan, a fantastic talent who was promoted by Frank Warren. He won the WBO featherweight title, injured his shoulder, never defended it, never recaptured the golden form that we all expected. And Boxing Registrar BR come up with Salvador Sanchez, a generation deprived of greatness due to his tragic death at the age of 23. That's a really good one. A few people went for Prince Naz, Boxing Empire, said Prince Naz should never have left the Ingle gym in Sheffield. A couple British fighters come up. One was Vernon Sollers, a brilliant Scottish amateur. I think he won the British featherweight title but never fulfilled his potential. Another one, a good one that Arnie Farnell come up with, was Dean Pithy, who went off the rails when he turned professional, but he was actually the last British boxer to be Nazim Hamid. Going over to Facebook, here's a really good one from Travis B. Squadron, and he come close to winning this. Pat Cowdell, and lucky that he ran into two greats in Salvador Sanchez and Azumar Nelson. He should have and could have been a world champ. I love that one, Travis. Ed Robinson of Sky, our pals at Sky Sports, he come up with Colin McMillan. There was also a bit of banter, should we say, on my Facebook page between...
Go on, Steve. We love banter.
The journeyman professional Miguel Matthews, former pro, really tough Welsh kid he was, and our own John Rawling, Sir John of Rawling.
Go on, John.
John was hammering it that Naz was the one that should have been, but Miguel Matthews come up with an old-timer, peerless Jim Driscoll, his Welsh countryman. He went to America, beat Abe Attal, the world champion, in a non-title fight. The rematch was made, but Jim refused to travel and fight him because he promised that he would attend a fundraiser for an orphanage in Cardiff at St Nazareth's House. That was way back in 1910, and because of that, he never fulfilled his potential.
Wow.
But the winner...
Go on, Steve. Give us a winner.
...has to be Boxing Register for Salvador Sanchez, the one I read out later. 12 or 13 words. A generation deprived of greatness due to his tragic death. Had he carried on, he would have been in the top 5 pound for pound of all-time boxers, but for his tragic death. And he certainly would have overtaken, say, Julio Cesar Chavez and Ricardo Lopez and Ruben Olivares as the greatest Mexican boxer. Salvador Sanchez, BoxNation Podcast, salute you.
Wow, high praise indeed. If you're getting a salutation from the BoxNation Podcast, you really have got high praise. So that was from the Boxing Register. Well, we've got some good news, Mr. Boxing Register. You have won yourself 2 tickets to December the 9th, the Copper Box Arena. James DeGale versus Caleb Truax, Lee Selby against Eduardo Ramirez, Anthony Yards on the card, Daniel Dubois, and you, my friend, will be there too. So we'll send you a little DM on Twitter, slide into them DMs with some great news, and you got yourself 2 tickets, so we'll be in touch. Well, Steve, back to Belfast. Now, there were some outstanding performances. Paddy Barnes got a stoppage, picked up another title. John O'Carroll, love what he did. He got a stoppage win and he got up to the top rope and he said, "Are you not entertained?" Very gladiator style. I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. But for me, what stood out was my man from South Africa, Zolani Lastborn Tete. He knocked out Sibonise Ogonia in 11 seconds. It's the fastest ever knockout in world title history. Were you impressed, Steve? Hard not to be, isn't it?
I've always been impressed by him, and you're even impressed even more when you defend your world title in 11 seconds. He's a remarkable fighter. What I'm sure Frank Warren would pay to get Matchroom's Ryan Burnett in the same ring as him, I'm sure he'd offer Ryan a lot of money. And I just hope, as his career goes on, he doesn't end up like Guillermo Rigondeaux and becomes more than just a paid up member of the Who Needs Him club. That performance the other night may have put him out of a fight with, say, Ryan Burnett forever, because, you know, if you manage Ryan Burnett, Dev, would you be in a hurry to put him in with Zolani Tete unless the money was going off the radar?
I mean, if I'm the manager of Ryan Burnett, I don't think I would, but if I'm Ryan Burnett and if I'm a fighter and I want to prove that I'm the best and I've got 2 of the belts, I'd want to grab the others and say, yeah, I'm the man around here. You've just knocked out someone in my hometown. I don't care, I can do that too.
That's why boxers have managers.
Yeah.
To advise them, because look, Ryan Burnett is a warrior. He's a very, very good unified world champion. But he's going to look at that and think, well, what does Zolani at this now? What has he got that I want?
Well, here's what Zolani Tete actually had to say after that knockout, and that knockout, by the way, is going viral. It's done over 1 million views on Sport Bible alone. We've done hundreds of thousands across our channel. He certainly made a statement, and here's what Zolani had to say.
How keen are you now for a unification showdown? Who would you like to face next in this red hot division?
I would love to fight Ryan Burnett. I believe he stays here. It's his home ground. And I'm sure he's around. He must come forward and we do this thing. I mean, there must be one king in the bantamweight.
He is something special. He's one of those special fighters that come along once in a blue moon. The reason we're in Belfast is for Ryan Burnett. That's the fight we want. I'm going to speak to... I don't know what his promotional deal's like, but Adam Booth, who's his manager, if he wants to contact me, we want to make the fight. Here we make it in Belfast, in his hometown. He'll fight him in his front room. He is the number 1 in my opinion, but let's find out who's the number 1. And the only way you're going to find out is to get him in this ring in Belfast, and we want to do that ASAP. If Ryan Burnett believes he's the best, we've got to find a way to do this and a way around it to do it. I remember I already offered him. I said Zolani would go and fight on Sky TV, would fight Ryan Burnett. I'll pay his purse to fight on their show. They never come back to us. Well, let's get serious now. We want to do it. That's why we're here. Let's make the fight. Ryan Burnett's a good fighter. It'll be a good fight. It'll be a real step up for both of them. It's going to be a great fight. Let's get it on and give the fans what they want. The best fighting the best. And he's the best, and Ryan Burnett thinks he's the best. So let's find out.
Well, as Frank said there, and this seems to be the mantra coming from Warren headquarters, we want to see the best fighting the best. One thing I will touch upon there, Frank mentioned that he's going to be in touch with Adam Booth. Adam Booth was apparently in Belfast. I didn't see him, but he sent out a tweet saying that he's in Belfast to keep an eye on a potential unification fight, which has to be Burnett versus Tete. Since that 11-second blitz, it's been silence from Camp Booth.
Yeah, well, I'm sure, look, I mean, first of all, again, as we mentioned about contracts, all that, they've got to check what the situation is with Matchroom, you know, whether he's under contract or what. And then, look, I'm sure Frank will speak with Adam Booth at some time. He's not the hardest man in the world track down. I'll have his phone number. I'm sure Frank at some stage this week will ring Adam, get the situation, and shall we say put the feelers out for the fight. Frank's been sold on Zolani Teti ever since he signed him shortly after he beat Paul Butler in Liverpool. And if you go back to that fight, Dev, myself included, we all look daft. Well, I look daft now. I'll put my hands up. We just thought that week that he was in town, that Frank was buying the title for Paul Butler. Yeah. Then when he got in the ring, we knew after a round that Paul was in for a very hard night.
It was something special that night. And I just want to confirm, Steve did indeed put his hands up there physically, admitting his error. Steve, jumping up a couple of weight divisions, we are going to go to welterweight. Now, you've been busy. You've been busy this week, Steve, and you caught up with none other than British welterweight champion Bradley Super Skeete. Here's what Skeete had to say.
Bradley, you're looking well as always. Any news on a fight that we might see you back in action?
Thank you, Steve. Hopefully get Christmas out of the way, and looking at February time, we get out there. Gutted that obviously the Jeff Horn situation, but good luck to Gary. Hope he goes out there and gets the belt. And just got to be patient and wait my time.
So, did you think you had that Jeff Horn fight? Was there anything that made you think, I've got this one?
We was close, but it's boxing. I think they looked at it and they looked at the fight. They can make all the excuses they want. They could say I've got a boring style, but they knew deep down I was going to go out there and box his head off and come back home with that belt.
Has Gary got a chance of winning?
Yeah, of course he has. Gary's a tough fighter. I said they picked an easy option, but not being disrespectful to Gary. Gary's a tough fighter, and I hope he goes out there and does the business.
And what about yourself for 2018 then? What are you expecting or do you want to achieve? Because that WBO route, you're number 2 in the rankings, but it seems closed right now, doesn't it?
Yeah, boxing, anything can just change overnight, and it seems Crawford has moved up now, and he's rightly so the mandatory at 147 now for the belt. So the winner of that fight will defend against Crawford in 90 days, and once he's got that belt, it's wrapped up. He'll be looking at super fights, and I know I'm a year out from that now, so maybe it's an option for me now to look elsewhere and see another route we may be able to go down. But I'm just going to keep positive and like I say, get Christmas out of the way and look to be out in February time and see where we go.
And you're in a division where you look at the world champions and think, well, that's the one I will beat. It is, I'm going to have to be better and twice as good as I've previously been for everybody, really.
Yeah, I always said it, there's world class and there's elite level, and all the champions at 147 are elite level now. So I've just got to get the right fights and hopefully my time will come, and when the time does come, I'll be taking the opportunity and getting in there and trying to get that world title.
I have seen your name linked with Amir Khan. Surely that would be a fight you'd jump at.
It'd be a great fight, but even that now, I've seen he's going in the jungle now, so I don't know where that leaves me. But it's a great fight. I'll be more than happy to take that fight and try and get me up there and mix in with them world class fighters.
You know what you should do? Jump on a plane to Australia when he's up for eviction, and when he comes out in the jungle across that bridge, go running at him. What about that? Is that not your style?
It's like Australia's the thing at the minute. I might as well just jump on the plane and kill two birds with one stone. But yeah, we're trying, Steve. We're trying.
Bradley Skeete in great form as ever. You got a feel for him a bit here. I mean, he looked all set to have that fight, and now he almost seems out of the picture with Terence Crawford being made mandatory. He's not going to be at the top of anyone's list for an easy defence either, so he's going to have to earn it.
I feel so sorry for him because that's gone, as he said, he's out the door because, look, let's be honest, Crawford's going to beat, and this no disrespect to Jeff Horn or Gary Corcoran, Crawford beats the winner of that fight in February. The winner has to fight him because it's been mandated. And then Crawford will go and give Manny Pacquiao his last payday, which is a massive fight for the end of 2018. So in a year's time, Bradley might go to number 1 with a WBO again, but he could face up to a 9-month wait. So it could be 2019 before he gets that shot at that title. If you look at the other champions, Thurman, Spence, how tough it is going to be for him to get a world title shot, I don't know. And I can see why Frank Warren has mentioned the Amir Khan fight. I think he might, I'm not sure if he's mentioned the Khan's people. if Khan will be interested in that for his when he does eventually come back to the ring. Certainly would attract interest in this country.
Well, if you are Amir Khan, do you take a fight with Bradley Skeete?
If Amir Khan still believes he's elite level and that he can still go and recapture his golden years, recapture the sort of form that beat Marcus Medina, which is a long time ago now. He says he can recapture that form. Then you don't run away from Bradley Skeete, do you? And that's not having a go at Bradley. Bradley could go and win a world title. He's a very, very accomplished, skilled boxer, without a shadow of a doubt. But if you believe you're gonna beat the very best in the business, you come through Bradley Skeete. So Bradley Skeete might say, well, if I want to prove myself to be able to fight Thurman, Spence, Crawford, these sort of guys, I might have to get through Amir Khan.
And speaking about Amir Khan there, that leads us nicely on to a segment in this show. It's going to be a weekly segment. You've seen the columns online, yeah? What you talking about, Lillis? So every week, Steve Lillis is going to have a gripe, or he's going to have a rant, or he might actually just be really happy and just laud praise upon someone. But this week, what you talking about, Lillis?
I'm talking about Amir Khan, because he's in the jungle. I'm a celebrity, get me out of it. And the stick he's got ever since he's got in there. I was at home last night watching the show, really enjoyed him on there, thought he was entertaining, said a couple daft things, but as Amir does to us all, you know him well enough, Dev, and he does come out with these things sometimes. But underneath it, I'm not going to go on about his private life. Let's just left hook that out for 10. He is a decent fella, and I think in the jungle we might see that side of him come out where people do realise he's a good fella. But I was following it just on Twitter last night, just being nosy, following his name and what was being said. There was even people digging up because he had a white shirt tucked in his diesel jeans. I mean, come on, give the guy a break while he's in the jungle. You know, I thought he was quite nice in there when he was in the jungle and there the food rations were being split up. And he said, oh, we've got to make sure the guy who's Boris Johnson's dad, Stanley Johnson, whatever he's called, should have some food. He was the person who said that. No one picked up on that. It's all of the couple daft things he said. I think he's going to go in there and really do himself good, pretty much like David Hayes said. And from the boxing point of view, if he does well, what odds his next fight is on ITV pay-per-view?
Well, you never know. I mean, this whole jungle thing, we saw David Haye. David Haye went in there, I think it was November of 2012. At that point, he'd had the fight with Vladimir Klitschko. He had the whole the toe thing. There was a stink surrounding David Haye. There was the Audley fight as well, where he made some comments leading into that. But he seemed to go into the jungle and win the hearts of the British public and kind of repair that image somewhat.
He did. He come out there, sort of a mini national treasure. I'm not going to go using the David Beckham national treasure like when he got that free kick against Greece. But people loved him. I remember my youngest daughter was about 9 or 10 at the time. She fell in love with him, and he come to Manchester and did an appearance at a computer shop, and you couldn't get in there for love nor money. He was big news when he come out, and people loved him. He was on the chat shows. He'd done himself good in the jungle. He conducted himself well. He flew through those bush tuckers. I know someone who works on the show, and when he would do them bush tucker trials and win them all food, first question he'd ask the producer, Anton Deck, what you didn't see on camera, was what's the record for doing this, because some experts done it, and he'd be determined to do the record, and if he couldn't do the record, he'd want to break it. And I think Amir Khan will come out of there a lot more revered by the public than what he's got in. But everyone who's having a go on Twitter, just give the guy a break. He's trying to do it. He's getting about 400,000 reasons why he's in that jungle, I believe, which is fantastic. And well, at the moment, don't forget, I think he's back. His dad's doing his negotiations with him for his fight. He'll come back out and he'll be in the ring soon. I know we're all frustrated. He hasn't boxed since the Canelo loss, but he'll be back next year. I'm not telling you he's going to recapture the sort of performance that beat Marcus Medina and made him a Las Vegas pin-up, but he'll be back. But give him a break while he's in the jungle. He can't even go in there without getting smashed for no reason. And if someone has to pick on him for having a white shirt tucked in diesel jeans, then
Yeah.
They need to get a life. I'm sorry.
I mean, you can understand some of the criticism. He has been living his life kind of on social media. All the dirty laundry has been hung out. So you can understand why some people are somewhat anti-Khan, but I agree he does get a lot of stick. Steve Bunce did quite a good rant on it recently about, ultimately he's just a nice guy. He hasn't really done anything wrong.
I will swear to anybody to go and meet him for 2 minutes and you'll have a different opinion of him. And as I say, he does come out with the odd daft thing. And there's times I think he shouldn't be allowed near Twitter. Perhaps that, someone should take that off him when he comes out. But underneath it all, cut it all up, chop it all down. When you just get Amir Khan in the flesh, he's a good guy.
Well, you could be talking about the future king of the jungle there, and we wish Amir well, and we'll certainly be tuning in every night, won't we?
I certainly will. It's the only time my family get me near a TV because he's in there, so they're happy.
Something that came across my attention very recently, there was a little bit of Twitter beef. We're going to look at different types of beef. There was a bit of Twitter beef between Carl Frampton and Kid Galahad. Did you catch that, Steve?
I did, yeah, I did.
So Kid Galahad put out a tweet which was kind of reflecting on Carl Frampton's performance. He put a thinking emoji, I think, and he seemed to highlight that maybe Carl Frampton wasn't at his best and he should actually come and train with Kid Galahad. And then Carl Frampton replied saying, well, it could be worse, I could be a drugs cheat. What did you make of all that?
The reply was fantastic,
yeah.
And for anyone who knows people like Carl Frampton and his very good pals Michael Conlon and Paddy Barnes, they're very quick with the one-liners. There's been a lot of victims, and I think Kid Galahad was the latest one. I had no problem with Kid Galahad's tweet. He's just trying to get his name out there like all boxers were. But the reply was fantastic. It was hilarious because at the end of the day, whatever went on with Kid Galahad and his drugs ban, he claims it was something when he went to see his brother.
Brother spiked his drink.
His brother spiked his drink. We don't know, but I bet even Kid Galahad might have gone, and then sort of had a little snigger and clap to that.
Well, we'll keep an eye out on more beef during the week. We've just literally now, as we're recording, seen some breaking news come through, which is about the David Haye versus Tony Bellew, Haye, whatever they were calling it in the end. That fight has now been postponed as David Haye has pulled out with an injury. So the statement that's come out from Haye's camp is, and this is from David Haye himself, unfortunately, after a freak accident during a stair conditioning session, which I've done hundreds of times, I lost my footing, slipped, so instinctively grabbed the banister to stop myself toppling down the stairwell. In doing so, I somehow managed to damage my bicep. So that fight's off. Steve, reaction?
It's a shame. I was looking forward to it. I really, really was, and made it even worse. I had a bet after the last fight that Tony Bellew's next fight would be David Haye at 8-1. So I'm absolutely gutted that it's off. But no, look, thing with David now, what worries me is, they want to reschedule the fight for March 24 or May 5, which strange date to go, given that's likely to be the Golovkin versus Canelo rematch in Las Vegas or Dallas. I know Oscar's talking of going back to Las Vegas with it. Mad night. But what concerns me is David's injuries. I just think, he's fantastic shape. It always is. Even between fights, you never see an ounce on him. I just think the years and years are just taking their toll on his body. We've seen his timing out in fights recently. Not just the knee injury, was it in the last fight?
The Achilles
injury, in the last fight that he went into the fight with. He went to Germany during the fight to have the Achilles seen too during the week. I think it was the Wednesday before it to see a German specialist. I just think his body, he just cannot take it. I believe he doesn't do a lot of sparring now, which answers his timing being out so much in fights. I just think his body, as fantastic as he looks, he just cannot get through hard training camps without getting injured, which is a great shame for him. Because you know what, I'd still like to see him have another assault at the heavyweight title, but I'm not sure if his body's going to let him go that far. There were rumours last week, but they were denied. People who were at the Haye gym from Sky and photographers said he was fine. Yeah. So you've got to believe that this injury has happened since then, but whatever it is, he is now injury prone. It's almost like a footballer who keeps getting injured towards the end of his career, and he's out for a few weeks. That's what he's akin to right now. And the more injuries he gets, every day that passes, he's a day older as a boxer.
Definitely. And I think this was version 2.0, was it 3, 4, version 7.0 possibly? I mean, they do seem to say every time, oh, he's bigger and he's better than ever, he's faster, I feel like I did when I was 20. That just can't be true, can it?
He may well feel like he did when he was 20, because he does get, he is an incredibly fit man. You could see him in 20 years' time. He will look magnificent. But boxing training, he cannot get through a tough boxing training camp, it seems to me, for a fight where you've got to go that little bit extra, which is a shame. I like David a lot. I'm a big fan of him as a person and a fighter. I think as a cruiserweight, he's one of the greatest of all time, and I think he's win against Enzo Macquinelli, Mark Mormack.
Yeah.
They'll stay with me forever. The Mormack win was one of the finest wins, I think, for a British fighter abroad of the last 25 years.
Got knocked down, came back and won it,
4th
donking
round.
Promotion, etc., etc. Hell of a performance there
Brilliant.
from David Haye. Do you think the rematch will happen then? Can he recover from this? He's injured again.
They'll announce the rematch. That I'm sure. There's too much money resting in the rematch. Look, Dev, boxing revolves around money. It's a sport. It's a business first and foremost, in my opinion. They will try and make the rematch, but I think if there's another breakdown, they'll announce another date for March or May. But if there's another breakdown, I think David will himself then say, "Hey, I just can't do that again. Go for another training." It isn't just. He's getting older. He's got to go through another training camp. It's like when you're watching, Vladimir Klitschko at the end of his career. It wasn't the fights as much. Apart the Joshua fight was torrid. It was getting his body into training camps all the time, and that is as hard as the fights. I think they'll announce the fight one more time, and if it collapses again, that'll be it. Now we wait to see. I don't know whether Tony is going to have a fight now in. And what you might get now wouldn't surprise me. I'm just thinking here,
Dillian Whyte?
As we speak, Dillian Whyte, maybe he could fight Dillian. Whether Dillian was stepping in December, I don't know. If not, could he fight Dillian Whyte on that date? I think Eddie's got the date at the O2 Arena around February 3rd or 4th.
It makes sense. I mean, they seem to have started arguing with each other on Twitter, which is always a bit of a warning sign of something's brewing.
And one thing for sure, Dillian Whyte will most probably be on Twitter already.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. We'll have to check. I saw something from Tyson Fury calling out Tony Bellew as well. Do you think there's any sort of legs in that?
Let Tyson get his licence back first, get a few pounds off. I don't think Tyson will be fighting Tony Bellew. I think Tyson comes back, we might get something like a novelty fight against Shannon Briggs, and then he'll go straight for Wilder or Anthony Joshua. Tyson won't hang around when and if he gets his licence back, which I think he will.
Well, let's look ahead to the week in boxing. There's actually not a whole lot coming up. There is maybe one name that stands out, and that's Sergey Kovalev. So he's fighting Shabransky, I believe it is, Steve.
Yep.
Can he reclaim not only the WBO World Light Heavyweight title, which is on the line, but also can he reclaim former glories?
It would be nice to see that he's been beaten twice by Andre Ward, and he gets the chance to pick up one of his former belts off the floor when that Ward vacated, when he fights Vyacheslav Shabransky, who's a Ukrainian, for the WBO light heavyweight title. And what's good to see him back. It only comes 5 months after the second loss to Ward, so he hasn't messed around and gone vanishing, gone skulking, feeling sorry for himself. Can he reclaim his former glories? Well, it's nice to think he can, but he's going to have to do that and establish himself as this Russian wrecking machine who destroys all before him. He's got to come through people like Dmitry Bivol, the WBA champion, who a lot of people are now raving about, pretty much like he did Kovalev at the similar stage of his career. There's Artur Beterbiev, who beat him once or twice as an amateur. The IBF champion, he beat Enrico Colling the other week. Not a great fight, but that was mainly down to Colling. And of course, there's the WBC champion Adonis Stevenson, who just never seems to fight. He's got to go and beat a couple of those to recapture those years. But there's time on his side. Look, he's 34, which sounds old, but he's only had, I think it's 32, 33 fights. He's only been a pro 8.5 years. Okay, that's not short, but there's like heavyweights who box for longer. So I don't see why he certainly can't be fresh and win titles and go in these fights against Bivol and the likes with people giving him a good chance. He's got a new trainer now, Abro Tursunpulatov.
Okay, do you know much about him?
Very little. We all know very little about him. He met him when he's got a promotional company now, Crusher Promotions. Right. He signed a Russian middleweight who was trained by Tursunpulatov, and they got together then, and they seemed to get together in partnership, and he's got a new conditioner, Alexander Sedov. It all ended very, very nastily with John David Jackson. John David Jackson has said a few things that aren't true. I think he might have said, was he drinking?
He said that during camp for the Ward rematch he had been drinking.
I don't like to hear that from trainers, because at the end of the day, he's been paid a good wage by Kovalev and his team. What happened, if it has gone on, he should be keeping his mouth shut. I don't like to hear stuff like that from trainers. Yeah, would he be saying that if Kovalev had said, I'm coming back to you, I'm going to stay with you and give you 10%? He wouldn't have been saying it.
Psychologically, where do you think Sergey Kovalev is? I mean, he was seen as the most feared man in the light heavyweight division. People wouldn't really want to fight him. Adonis Stevenson, I mean, there was the whole... I think he switched network, didn't he? To avoid a fight with Sergey Kovalev. Then you got Andre Ward, stepped up from super middleweight, come over, beat him twice, and the second time he stopped him. As controversial as it may have been, he stopped him with body shots.
Yeah, I had no argument with either fight, the stoppage or the points loss. You know what? What Ward has taken is the invincibility's gone. You know, he's no longer Crusher Kovalev, the invincible wrecking machine, like so many people, well, a lot of us thought that he was just going to leave a trail of destruction in that division. The invincibility's gone, but the fact he got jumped back on the hall so quickly, just a few months after the second lot, that gives me encouragement that he's still got the hunger and the desire to show that he is for real. That gives me encouragement to think, yeah, this guy's serious about, you know, showing that he is the number one light heavyweight now that Andre Ward's retired. But as I say, there's a lot he's got to get through to where you say he is number one again. You know, Bivol's looking better, but Turbiev will look a lot better when he fights someone who tries to fight, not just survive, as Enrico Colling did. You know, a lot of people saying Turbiev blew his network chance that night, but you got to look at Colling's performance from the first bell before he got stopped late in the fight. And look, we'd love to see him fight Stevenson, but who knows what Adonis Stevenson is going to do.
Well, if Kovalev picks up that WBO belt, I think we're expecting him to get that win. How far away is our own Anthony Yarde, who's the WBO European champion, the WBO Intercontinental champion as well, I believe. He's got a high ranking, which always seems to be going up with the WBO. How far away is the beast from a fight with someone like Sergey Kovalev?
Long, long way. Look, it's all well and good having these world rankings, fantastic, but you know, unless you're number one mandatory contender where you're going to force the issue, you can be ranked anywhere in that top 15. You know, you can still carry on learning your trade. They'll come to you. Do you want to fight? If Kovalev beat Shabransky on Saturday night, I think it's at Madison Square Garden, the theatre downstairs, and they rang Frank Warren for Anthony Yarde, would he be interested in one of the next three defences? They'd say no, even though he's in that top 15. Anthony only had, I think, 12 or 13 amateur fights. Yeah. What's he on now as a pro? Is he 11 or 12 then?
I think he's 13.
13. He's still very much learning his craft. You know, let's not push Anthony. You know, he's got to have good learning fights. I want to see Anthony in a hard fight. And I don't think he'll be anywhere near fighting for a world title for at least 18 months. And I don't think Tundi, his trainer, would even consider him moving up to serious world level even in 2018, and I don't have a problem with that. We're not talking like someone like Joe Joyce, the heavyweight, who's come off the WSB and only fought elite amateurs for the last 5-6 years. We're talking someone who has been nowhere near that level as an amateur. I'm not saying he couldn't have gone on to Sheffield and achieved that. I'm not saying he could have done, but this is a kid who's very much learning his trade still, who's got immense potential. Let's let Anthony Yarde learn his trade and not start throwing him in these world title fights yet.
Well, he fights next on December 9th on that Copper Box bill that we talked about. He fights Nicholas Sedgelocker, which is a man who's never been stopped. He's been in there with Callum Smith, Arthur Abraham, chance for Anthony Yarde to make a statement.
It looks a good learning fight. You certainly get rounds in this fight, and if he blasted this guy away, then it would be a statement. But it doesn't take away from the fact he still needs to develop and get rounds, get these 10 rounds. I want to see him fight 10 rounds against someone who tries, who lands a few shots and he has to think. I want to see him fight 10 rounds against a guy almost like Enrico Colling did against Beterbiev, who stinks the place out. So he knows what it's like to be in that ring for 30, 40 minutes, a guy who just wants to survive. He will learn from experiences like that. And let's let him do that and push the world title talk to one side. Can he fight guys of Buglioni for a British title soon? Sure. But it'd be a great fight, him and Frank Buglioni. I'd love to see it. But let's put the world title talk away to one side. Some fighters deserve to be pushed quick. I don't think this kid does.
Okay, Steve. Well, let's see how he gets on against Nicola Sedlacka on December the 9th. If he puts on in a big statement performance, ices him in one round, maybe you'll start rethinking that.
I'm not rethinking. I'm not taking away the potential. I'm just saying we've got to forget talk of him winning a world title in the next few fights. It's not just about fighting for a world title, winning it, and then not being ready to defend it. If you find a weak champion, it's about winning that world title and keeping it for as long as you can and amassing as much money as you can as champion.
Okay, well, this is what's coming up this week on BoxNation. We've got a few dates and a few times for you. So, the Channel of Champions, 24/7. There's different shows on all the time. You cannot escape the quality. So, let's look first. Wednesday, 10 o'clock, we've got BoxNation presents Hatton versus Mcgee. That's Ricky Hatton against Eamon Mcgee. Do you remember that fight, Steve?
I was there.
Oh, wow.
Absolute fantastic fight at Manchester Arena. Ricky had a tough night that night against Eamon Mcgee, and what that 12-round war did, it brought a couple men together afterwards. They shared a Guinness in the dressing room, and they've been friends for life. And I think often when Ricky's in Belfast, which is quite a lot, he looks up Eamon to share a glass of Guinness with. Great fight, worthwhile. If you haven't seen it, if you're young, you're quite young, and you watched Ricky Hatton, you would have thought of the fights against Pacquiao, Mayweather. Have a look at this one. So it was a great fight at Manchester Arena that night. Absolutely genuine sellout as well.
Well, that's Wednesday at 10 o'clock, so make sure you catch that. We've got a show, it's on every week. I think it's on quite a few times a week. Greatest Boxing Classics. And this week we look at Larry Holmes against Maurice Harris. So if you haven't watched Greatest Boxing Classics yet, it's Tuesday night fights, I believe, from back in the day. And it feels like you're being picked up off your sofa, plucked, and then just sort of dropped into a completely different era of boxing. It's a great watch.
It's great to see him in American ballrooms and stuff.
Yeah.
And that fight was near the end of Larry's career. I think it was the one after he lost the stinker of a decision to a Dane, Brian Nielsen, in Denmark. Yeah. I think he only had about another 4 or 5 fights after that.
Well, that's Saturday at 1 o'clock. Make sure you tune in. There are going to be repeats as well. Go to BoxNation.com to find out, or check your TV listings. Thursday, 7 o'clock. Now, this is every Thursday, 7 o'clock. Do not miss this. This is the Cassius and Helder show. You know Coogan, you know James. And this week they are off to Sheffield to talk to Billy Joe Saunders as he prepares for his huge world title defence against David Lemieux on December 16th. Steve, quick word on that.
Great fight, great fight. Fair play to Billy Joe. He's gone to Canada where there's good money, I dare say, and also exposure on HBO that's been denied him in the past. He goes there and beats Lemieux. He can become an HBO regular. I think he wins that fight. He'll be in the frame to meet the winner of the Golovkin-Canelo rematch, which I'm presuming is going to happen in May. The signs are quite good. Peter Nelson of HBO, I listened to him the other day. He's quite hopeful it'll take place. It seems it's just a case of a few things to be sorted out between Eric Gomez of Golden Boy and Tom Loeffler of K2, who looks after Triple G. So that's the sort of the fight he'll be looking forward to. And you know what? I think Lemieux's tailor-made for him.
It is one of those. I've heard a few people say that. You're not alone with that, Steve. And we'll get all the lowdown from Cassius and Helder this Thursday, 7 o'clock, as they talk to Billy Joe Saunders in Sheffield. Then Friday. Now, this is every Friday, 7 o'clock. If you don't know, you should know. It's Bunce's Boxing Hour. So that's Steve Bunce, our esteemed colleague. He's got studio guests, he's got chat, he's got Barry Jones with him. Steve, is it the best boxing show in the world?
It's fantastic. It's the numero uno boxing show in the world with Buncey and Barry Jones. Two guys there, forgotten more than most people know. Barry Jones, absolutely fantastic as a colour commentator, or whether he's sitting on that sofa with Buncey at 7 o'clock, or with myself and Buncey at 3, 4 o'clock on a Saturday morning, early hours of Sunday morning, watching a couple of Mexican flyweights go at it for 6 rounds. The enthusiasm from the pair of them on that show is to behold. And I think that's also on Facebook Live now.
It is indeed, Steve. It is indeed. It's free to air as always on Sky Channel 437 on BoxNation, and we're also live Friday 7 o'clock on Facebook. So you can all watch it, even if you're not at a TV. Watch it on your phone. If you're on your iPad, watch it on your iPad. Once the show's finished, a couple of hours later, it will appear on demand on watch.boxnation.com. Check out the website, there's plenty of free content on there. Well, that's it for this week, Steve. Have you enjoyed yourself?
It's been a good debut show for us, I think. Plenty of big names, plenty of talking points, and a hard news story at the end with Bellew and Hay falling through.
Big news that. Well, remember to tweet us any comments at BoxNation TV. Steve, do you want to drop in your Twitter handle?
At Steve Lillis, SteveLillis.
That's good. You managed to get the actual name. You didn't have to Steve Lillis 784.
I don't think there's too many Lillises about. I see a few floating about, not too many Steve Lillis. And when anyone they know it's me, they just change their Twitter handle if they're a Steve Lillis.
Absolutely. There is only one Steve Lillis.
There's only one Steve Lillis.
Well, it would appear that there are actually several Dev Sahnis, because when I tried to get the at Dev Sahni handle, I think it gave me options of at Dev Sahni 327, 328, etc., etc., and I'm just not about that life. So if you want to tweet me, it's at Sahni Dev. But until next week, thank you to Steve. Thank you to our producer Andrew, sat here with us. Shout out, my man. And thank you, most importantly, to you for listening. We'll be back next week, and we'll have some more fire on the BoxNation podcast. Thanks.